Hi everybody and welcome to our session today. I'm Cath Potter, I'm one of the founders of Cider Women. I'm a cider enthusiast and a Pommelier. So my passion is to introduce people to the best ciders available and to encourage pubs, bars, restaurants to stock these and get customers to experience this wonderful drink. So I've been involved in helping to set up Pulling Together for Cider, the listing of cider producers and suppliers, continuing to provide cider online or local deliveries, that's with camera. And we're inviting everyone to rethink cider to celebrate some of the wonderful products that are now available. I think I have to say that too often drinkers have been put off ciders by its old-fashioned image and the overly sweet industrial ciders, or by ascetic scrumpy ciders on holiday, you know, the one your dad drank and then he fell over. A modern cider is now asserting its place alongside the finest craft beers and natural wines that are available. So what's Cider Women? Cider Women's a new pan-industry and consumer group. We're designed to champion the role of women in cider. We launched last October at the preview of the Women and the Art of Cider exhibition, which was held at the Museum of Cider in Hereford. We aim to raise the profile of women in cider and to encourage everybody who's interested in promoting inclusivity in all fronts within the cider community. And I'll be really honest with you, it's women in cider that are in the lead in the rise of this in the rise of this cider community. So I'm going to read out our mission statement because I think it's quite important. We're women, self-identified women, trans, non-binary women, producers, growers and cider lovers. We're organising because we want to support each other and to build an inclusive, non-sexist cider culture. We plan to share knowledge and opportunities, develop the visibility and celebrate successes scored by the many women in cider in the UK and further afield. We were inspired by our cousins across the pond, Pomme Boots in America, and we're a new grassroots network that will hopefully grow and develop with member input and needs. Longer term, we intend to involve our members in national cider events, professional development. We're going to develop a members directory, resource sharing, and whatever else we can make happen. We've got a Facebook page which is open to all, and a closed Facebook discussion group for members to create a positive, safe space to initiate conversations, support each other and share knowledge and resources and inspiration. And we hope to build a really inclusive community. So the session today is going to present 3 ciders made by women makers and contributions by our other cider makers that are here with us today. Don't worry if you haven't managed to get your hands on all the ciders, just drink what you've got and enjoy it. I'd like to thank Women on Tap for providing this wonderful opportunity, and we hope that we can meet in person once it's really safe to do so. So I just want to say one last thing. Please contribute to the charity fundraising that Women on Tap have set up as part of the festival. It's going to a great cause and links will be available on the chat very shortly. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to hand over to Susanna Forbes, who's going to talk us through the first cider that we're going to taste today. Susanna.
Thanks so much, Cath, and thanks so much, Rachel. It's absolutely wonderful for us all, us founders, all to be here with you guys. When Cath and I first met Rachel at the Cloudwater Family and Friends Festival, we just knew that we wanted to share our group with the Women on Tap Festival. There's so many like minds. You're doing such the same sort of thing as we are. Cider is amazing. It's just like beer, it's just like wine. The flavors can be incredible and the community is so warm. I'm so thrilled to be one of the Cider Women founders. I think we have a chance to make a difference, and you all being here shows us that we can do this. So my fellow founders who you're going to hear from today, they're talented, they're capable, they're creative, and above all, they're determined. We want to change the future, and we want to make the cider world more inclusive and more diverse. So, but what's got us here? I think the first thing we have to do is get something in the glass, and then we'll all know. So everyone, if you pour your cider, or if you've got it in your glass, grab your bottle or whatever. I've chosen something from us. So little Pomona, this is Enter the Dragon, here we go. I've pre-poured mine just because I didn't want to get behind. So have a little swirl, have a sniff, and then as soon as everyone's got a glass, there's a wonderful tradition. We all want to do a wassail, we all want to do a cheers. So let's all raise our glass towards the screen and towards our cameras. Everyone ready? 1, 2, 3, wassail! So I'm going to take a little sip, just as you are. So, mine's quite a rich little cider there. That's brilliant. First cider of the day. Thanks, Rachel. I like this. So, little Pomona. We're based in Thornbury, which is North Herefordshire. It's a beautiful little spot. And we actually happen to be 10 miles from where Tom Oliver is. Many of you I know will have either met him or heard of him, certainly, and probably tasted his ciders. So what brought us here? We started up about 5 years ago. We sold our first cider 3 years ago. It took us that long before the cider felt ready. So we're really about championing the fruit in the orchard. Unfortunately, you can't really see it, but our orchard is about 200 yards from here. It's in blossom now. We're a bit later than the rest of the country. The dabinet's just coming through. We're about 200 meters higher. But as with everyone here, we really craft our ciders. And actually, we've just opened our tasting room a few miles away. It's just a bottle shop for now, but you're very welcome to come and see us when you can. This cider is from the exceptional 2018 harvest. This is Enter the Dragon, and it's called Enter the Dragon because the fruit comes from Dragon Orchard, which is just an inspirational orchard run by Anne and Norman Stanier, and that's based in Putley. And as it happens, Norman Stanier's family has been involved in orcharding for generations. I think one of the things we can do here is we can help everyone understand more about the real importance. These aren't just growing trees, these are wonderful communal places. So actually, I've done a profile of them in the latest Full Juice, so I'll put the link up to that later on. So what is different about each of us is how we make our cider, and I think that's what we'd love to share with you. We know that you all love flavour, so we know we're speaking to the right sort of people. So what we did with Enter the Dragon, James and I run Little Pomona. James is mainly in charge of all the cider making, so I'm absolutely the help and I do everything else as well. This one, we split the fruit. It's all dabinet, wonderful apple, lots of lovely tannins. That's what the West Country is brilliant for, apples with tannins. We split it into 3 different strands and fermented them differently. So one was with wild yeast. That's the way we normally do things. Another was with a Saccharomyces, and then another was with a cultured wild yeast. Then later on, far down the line, we blended them. That's where part of the art comes in. And it was a very careful blend. And so then we left it for another year. And then now here we have what I hope you'll find is, if you've got it, and thanks very much for those who did manage to get hold of it. And if you haven't, hopefully we'll be able to share another iteration. We had some kegs done, which now we're selling by the growler because the pubs are shut. So, but hopefully you'll be able to taste it. So it's a little bit spicy, and I think you get a real depth. What we call it is juicy. This is what we would say. But there's so many different flavors. So another thing we all absolutely love to do is have cider and cheese. So I'm absolutely thrilled that one of our cider women, Kate Lovell, also makes cheese. So we've got Hancock's, I've got Hancock's Farm Meadow cheese. I will absolutely put the link in there. So Kate and Toby also make cider, but their cheese, this is a sheep's ewe's milk cheese. It's raw milk, and what you get is a lot of lovely flavour. And what we find is that matching cider and cheese is a perfect way for us all to understand a little bit more. So actually, I was thinking, I don't know what you guys all think, maybe one of our future sessions should be cider and cheese matching. So I think it's all about bringing people into cider and showing them what you can do with it. So I'd like to offer you another cheers, because I think we're going to be moving on and sharing some of the other stories. And I look forward to chatting with you later. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. Thanks, Susanna. Okay, so while we're enjoying that cider, we're just going to have a little bit more chat. And first of all, I'd like to bring in Izzy, who's from Barleywood Cider, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what they do and about their ciders.
Hello, yeah. Should I just pick it up now?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Susanna, for sharing your cider. Unfortunately, we got the wrong one. We ended up with your quince one, which was absolutely beautiful, and we're enjoying that. So, and it's got a lovely quince flavour in it. And we have a couple of quince trees in our orchard. And every year we just sort of end up making some failed jelly instead of anything more exciting. So I'm a bit more inspired there. So I'm from Barleywood Orchard. I'm Izzy, and I'm also helped found Cider Women, originally inspired at the CraftCon conference last year, where we all just naturally gravitated to each other and like finding the other women in the room and excitedly started chatting, and so it kind of grew from there, which is and it's really sort of helped me find my feet in the cider world, which does obviously feel a little bit daunting as especially as a newer cider maker. So I guess me and Mike over here make cider at Barleywood. We're based in a really gorgeous walled garden just down the road here in North Somerset, just south of Bristol Airport. We're lucky to have a very pretty spot. We have a wooden roundhouse that we can use with two restored antique manual presses. So and so we kind of adopted that, and we just ended up in this space and renting this cider barn and corresponding unsprayed lovely old orchards. It's a really lovely spot, and so we've kind of adopted just doing everything by hand and doing it slowly, doing it with care, with minimal intervention, using wild yeasts, making pure juice products. So we make both apple juice, so there's our apple juice, and then we obviously make a whole range of traditional ciders in different methods, just from like our 500ml carbonated bottle that we have, but then also just playing around with single varieties, different combinations, getting to learn what we've got in our orchards and how they go together. It's quite an exciting process. We also do some keeving. This is our 2018 keeved, which quite like the colour in that one. And that's got a nice full body taste in that. Yeah, and or cold racking and trying to figure out how to keep residual sweetness in natural ways. Yeah, and then yesterday we were bottling as well, and we bottled into this, like something that had been finished in a whiskey cask. We'll see how that turns out. It's been tasting pretty good, getting a bit of subtle whiskey flavours, and it's really exciting and fun to be able to experiment with smaller batches, with really making the most of what we do. So we're just small scale producers, but we put a lot of love into it. And because we're in such a nice spot, we're also normally open on weekends, and we welcome people down, pour pints, have events, etc. all throughout the summer. Now is just a lovely time to go because of all the blossom, and our orchards are looking gorgeous. Unfortunately, we've had to shut, so we've had to adjust what we're doing. We've started doing local home delivery service, just in our local areas, and we're also trying to become more available online. And yes, we've stocked through Cider Box and Scrattings, and hopefully soon a couple of other more online order places. So yeah, so all cider producers everywhere are suffering a bit from the situation. So do support us where you can. Michael, can you write our email address in the chat? Yeah. Thank you.
So, Izzy, there's also a question there.
Oh, there's a question.
Can you tell me what
keeving? Keeving is when you slow down the fermentation to keep some of the natural sugars from the apples in your cider, so that you don't have to artificially sweeten it. So you end up with a naturally sweet and product, and then you bottle condition it as well. So that's why this has got a champagne cork on it, because it's sort of bubbling away in there. So when you open this, then it's nice and sparkly, and it's just natural bottle conditioning that's happening there. Keeving is a sort of process adapted from French methods, and there's sort of other ways of also achieving that natural sweetness, but keeving is a particular way, and it is come mix for a tasty product. I recommend Keith ciders. Probably gone over time, haven't I? Should I pass over to Lydia?
Yes, please, thanks. So Lydia's next. Lydia is from Artist Straw Cider. Where's she gone?
Hi everyone, so I'm Lydia from Artist Straw. We're based just outside Hay-on-Wye. We've got 3 acres here, which we're planting up as an orchard at the moment, so it has been permanent pasture. Each tree in that orchard has been grafted by my husband Tom and I, who also is a big part of Artist Straw Cider, and we were particularly interested in really, really rare old varieties. So at the moment we've got about 50 or 60 different types of apple in there. We currently make about 3,000 litres a year. We don't add any sugar or any water, it's 100% pure juice. Yeah, this is one of our favourites from last year. Catch-20 Shrew. All of our ciders have shrew names because an artist straw is an old Herefordian word for shrew that we find in Kilvert's diary. Kilvert being the famous diarist who lived in this area. So yeah, we try to sort of have book and shrew themed names. Yeah, so I think that's all I've got to say at the moment. Thanks.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second cider now. And I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Becky Leach, who's going to talk about her cider called Ditcheat Hill. Do you want to unmute yourself? Cheers.
Yeah, hi there. So this is Ditcheat Hill. Firstly, I guess I'll introduce myself, Becky Leach. I'm one half of Wildings Cider, and we are cider makers in Somerset. We're orchard cider makers, so I'm actually outside because my baby's inside making a lot of noise. So this is one of our orchards, our main orchards. This is ours, and then we also manage 3 other orchards nearby, one in Abbottsley, one in Wells, and then Ditcheat Hill as well, which this cider is named after. Ditcheat Hill is probably one of our, well, other than our home orchard, probably our favourite orchard. It's beautiful. It's south-facing, wonderfully old trees. I don't think there might be, well, we've replanted a few, so a few are young that we've replanted, but the rest are 60 plus years. The aspect is just fantastic. There's kind of heavy clay at the bottom and some loamy in the upper 2/3. For some reason, this orchard just gives the best quality fruit. And 2018, which this cider was a particularly good year. The fruit was plentiful, sugar levels were quite high, but nutrient levels really low. So during, well, the beginning of the fermentation, we thought actually that this would be a dry cider, but the fermentation slowed in the winter to the point that we just thought, well, let's just go with this. So we racked it 3 times during the winter when it was nice and cold, and then it just stopped. So it resulted in a very slightly sparkling, maybe just a kind of tiny prickle, quite sweet cider, with real, I think on the nose, real tropical aromas. Wonderfully fruity, and this is going to the varieties. So all from Ditcheat Hill, this particular single orchard. It's a blend of browns, Harry Masters Jersey, Sweet Coppin, Ashton Brown Jersey, Red Jersey, and then I think it's a 6% Yarlington Mill. So a really nice blend of some really traditional Somerset cider apple varieties. I feel it's quite voluptuous on the mouth feel. It's kind of got sweet, balanced, bitter and quite aromatic tannins. Quite a fresh acidity. It's just a good all-rounder. I was trying earlier to think of what I would pair it with ideally, but I just like drinking it, and I think I'd like eating anything with it as well. It's really nice as a little aperitif. Sam and I actually had it with some lamb chops last night and really enjoyed it, and equally we've had it with pudding and it's really nice too. With a nice cheddar, it's really good. So yeah, I think if you've got a love of cider and a love of food, this one will actually go pretty much with everything. More back to how we make. So like this one was made like all of our ciders, kind of going with the ripeness of the apples. So we hand pick from all of our orchards. We wait until the apples are so ripe that they fall to the floor. So it is kind of back-breaking work, but so rewarding, because I think from experimenting from when we first started out in 2013 making cider as real hobbyists, up until now, we found that waiting for the fruit to get ripe is one of the keys to tasty ciders. So we let them drop. We then usually let them kind of sweat a bit, which is just leaving them be picked in their sacks or in piles until they're really soft and ready to press. And then with this one, we actually press the apples and put them in the tank as and when they were ready. So it was blended all at the beginning, but the fermentation did actually start with this cider before the final pressing was added to the tank. None of our orchards are sprayed. We don't add anything to the ciders, so it's just juice that's naturally fermented. It's all wild yeast. There's no sugar added, no sulfur. We don't actually use sulfur in any of the cleaning processes now. We invested in a steam cleaner, which is slightly terrifying, but also really nifty and efficient in cleaning. So we're managing to make this with no additions whatsoever, like all of our other ciders. And I think one of our aims with cider making is to really kind of show the expression of the apple and the orchards as well. As we're replanting many of the orchards and getting the balance a bit better, we're hoping to produce more like Ditcheat Hill, that are single orchard ciders, because I think it's very interesting to see how different apple varieties vary in their ripeness and therefore their kind of character and flavour in different orchards. So Ditcheat Hill, I think, is a really good orchard for single orchard ciders, and I hope you guys agree. And we hope to produce more single orchard ciders in the future. I haven't actually been looking at any of the chats, so hopefully I'm not missing any questions, but I'll definitely reply to any if there are any later. But yeah, that's this.
Thanks very much, Becky.
Oh, thank you.
Any specific questions for Becky?
Oh, do I supply anywhere in Yorkshire? Let me have a look. Oh, so I can't think of any particular shops in Yorkshire, but we do have the Fine Cider Company, who are shipping out actually a real array of ciders. So they stock ours. They also stock lots of other people's ciders. Scrattings also are an online shop, and they're delivering nationwide. I very almost said worldwide, but I think they might be cross if I said that. Maybe they do. And locally to us in Bristol, we have Corks are selling, Two Belly, Carve and the Cider Box. They're all selling locally. And we're hoping soon to have an off license, so we might be able to do a few kind of sales from the barn door as well. And there's a question, do you use wild yeast? Yes, we do. We only use wild yeast. We use stainless steel tanks. We actually make our cider in Fayland. So we're in Tumagna here, and we rent a lovely barn in Fayland. So that there's lots of good yeasts there, and on the apples as well. So yeah, wild yeast only. Oh, somebody's enjoying it with cheddar. Yes, good match.
Okay, thanks, Becky.
Thank you very much.
So we just move on to our second part of our little panel. First, I'd like to introduce Fiona Matthews from Bartistry Cider. Where are you?
I'm here.
Hey.
Thanks, Kath. So it's lovely to be here with all of you. I'm Fee, I'm from Bartestry, although I'm originally a very Welsh girl, having lived in Cardiff and made cider in Wales as a company called Cider for about 15 years. At hobby level, we decided, my husband and I, that we would take the plunge and move to Bartestry, little tiny village just outside Hereford, and make cider as an income stream. Very much like Becky and a lot of the others before who've talked before, our cider is very, very hands-on. We hand pick all the fruit. All of it is from orchards almost within walking distance of where we live. We only pick fruit that's fallen naturally ripe. We press most of it as single varieties. We again hand press. We have a beautiful Victorian workman press, which originally, well, not probably, it's very original, but we bought it from the lovely Jean Knoll at Lying Down Cider, who is probably one of the most iconic female cider makers. We press everything single variety. Some things, mainly for keeving, we blend at that stage. Everything else is fermented as single varieties and then blended later. We've got very into keeving in the last couple of years, which I think Izzy beautifully explained is the French way of keeping naturally sweet cider. So this is our last year's Normandy style cider, although actually that's a fake, that's an empty bottle because we've sold the very last bottle during lockdown. That's all we have been able to sell. So we've sold all our bottled cider from last year. And we're still waiting to release this year's cider, although we tasted it last night and it's quite good. So we're looking forward to starting labelling up the bottles, and that goes on sale in the Hereford Beer House this week and also in Bartestry Village stores. Now I'm currently drinking some beautiful Brown's apple, single varietal, beautiful, fresh, appley, citric, slightly sharp, but really quite sweet cider. One of the very few things that we haven't actually bottled, because with lockdown we have struggled. Most of our cider by now would have been sold in pubs and at festivals. Obviously not being able to sell that draft, we've had to bottle as much as we can. So I'm sure that all the cider makers here are going to agree. We've all got very sore hands from doing it. But I'm going to say cheers and hand over to, I believe, Hannah is coming on next. Cheers.
Cheers, Fiona. Yes, so next we've got Hannah. Hannah is a cider maker from a different part of the world, not traditionally associated with cider making, but it proves that good cider can be made just about anywhere in the country, providing you've got the skills and the good apples. So, Hannah, I'll hand over to you. You need to unmute yourself, Hannah. You need to, there you go.
Sorry about that, folks. Hi, I'm Hannah, and I am half of Knighton Cider Company. My husband, Kev Woolley, is the other half. We started making cider commercially in 2013. It was an absolute accident. We just fell into it. We made far too much, made 1,000 litres, just using every single apple at that time we could get hold of. We used waste apples from people's gardens, and we made a very, very acidic, very dry cider that surprisingly sold some of it. And we've tried to improve on that year on year. We started out just using culinary apples from the local area, but we now have found some local cider apples within Derbyshire and just over the border in Staffordshire, where we're based in Derbyshire, around the Ashbourne area. And we're hopefully improving our cider. And well, we've won some awards. We've won 5 CAMRA awards for it, so quite pleased. Need to enter some national competitions though, really. That'll be the scary bit. So we make full juice cider, 100% freshly pressed apple juice. We hand pick all the apples. There's no machinery involved with the picking, so like most other people, it's pretty backbreaking work. We're trying to leave now until the fruit is on the ground before we pick it. We've learned a lot. So predominantly our original ciders were an Eastern County style cider, which is an acid-led cider, if you like, sharp but very fruity. But with the introduction the past couple of years of cider fruit, we've been able to mellow that slightly and bring in more rounded taste with tannins on the end, more akin to a traditional cider, or at least what we call an East meets West cider. We learned a lot when we started from the cider workshop group on Google Groups, and I'd like to attribute Ray Blockley of Torquard Cider in Nottingham, who's been making cider for over 20 years commercially. he was absolutely brilliant support to us. In 2014, we started to do agricultural fairs. We found that our cider went brilliantly well with the farmers there. They loved it. And in 2017, we started doing farmers markets, and that's mainly where we sold our cider pre-COVID. And to add to our bad luck in a way with COVID, everybody's got bad luck with COVID. We opened a pub on the 20th of February this year, which we wanted to make it a destination for cider drinkers, but we were only open 3.5 weeks before we had to close down. But it was getting up there, and it was being enjoyed, and our cider offering was definitely being enjoyed by local people and people coming a bit further in for it. So today our cider, we started out making in 2013. We threw everything at it. We sulfited it to the max. We put wine yeast in, and yeast that would work at low temperatures. But now we don't pitch yeast at all, so we're low intervention. We let it ferment naturally. We try not to add sulfites. We only add sulfites if we've got a very high pH juice, and then we'll sulfite it at the minimum of allowance there. So we don't really, we try not to use sulfates at all. And our ethos is we're just trying to make the best cider we can with what we've got. And we're always learning. Every day in cider making is a new day. You always learn something. You always make some mistakes. Pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and learn from them. Our equipment we use is we have a hydropress, which is a water-based press. For those that don't know, it's a bladder that pushes out sideways, pushes the pulp against a big round cheese grater, and all the juice runs off down the side. And we use a Speedle apple mill to pulp the apple into the pulp to put in that, and that's worked very well. So today, the most recent thing, COVID really has put a bit of a stymie on things. We've not got an online shop set up, so our sales are virtually dried up overnight. I think we're thinking of doing some sort of online shop, but we've not got there yet. To be honest, we worked so hard in January and February getting the pub ready. We've just slept the last month. It's been brilliant. A sparkling champagne style cider, but that's sort of very ambitious for us at the moment, but we do dream of doing that. We just want to spread the word about good cider and hope you all enjoy drinking cider. Our ciders can only be got at the moment from Maison de Bière in Ashbourne. I'll put a link up. It's just a bottle shop at the moment. Because up to our Facebook page if in the future anything changes. Thanks very much for this opportunity to talk, and I'd like to go back to Cath now.
Thanks, Hannah. A couple of things before we move on. We've got a very international audience today. I'd like to welcome Erica from the US. I don't know what time it is there, but thank you very much for joining us. And then an important question has just come up on the chat, which is, what is the best way to support cider at the moment? And I think we'll come back to that in the discussion if that's okay, because that is really quite an important question. So I'd like to move on now to the last cider on our list, which is from Find and Foster. I'd really like to welcome Polly. I had a really fantastic time with Polly. She was the last guest at Manchester Cider Club before everything closed down, and we had an absolutely wonderful Cider Women afternoon tea at the Marble Arch. Thanks to Jan Rogers and Kerry, the chef, for that. So that event will always live long in my memory because it was the last thing before lockdown. So really, really pleased now to welcome Polly to talk about Find and Foster.
Thank you very much. Hello. So I'm Find and Foster, which is so cool because we find kind of moribund orchards in Devon. So orchards where they've either been neglected or kind of forgotten, or just the fruit's going to waste. And then we foster them with a kind of regenerative agriculture ethos, so for wildlife as well as the fruit. And Cath and Susanna asked me to talk about Saison Pomme today, but then also people who bought from the Fine Cider Company also may have got Pendragon, so I'm going to talk to you about Pendragon too. But Saison Pomme is this bottle, which, if you know my cider, is a very, very different label to the usual labels. It was so Saison Pomme was 2018. We ended up with a lot more bittersweet fruit than we'd ever had before. So we don't get to choose what apples we use, because we just use the apples from orchards that we have taken on to kind of foster. So that year we took on a really old orchard with loads of fruit, like Tremlitz bitter, which is, if you know the variety, it's very bitter, got a little bit of acidity, lots of tannin. So we kind of, it all being very new to us, we kind of thought, well, this will probably be a funky farmhouse cider, but we didn't know at all we were going to end up making Saison Pomme. So we picked those apples, fermented with wild yeast, so just let a spontaneous fermentation start, added a very, very small amount of sulfite, and then racked. I think we racked a couple of times because we were planning to bottle with a bit of residual sugar towards the end of the fermentation to make a pet nat. But then, like Becky was saying before, we also had really low, well, always have really low nutrient because the orchards are never fertilized or anything, but had an extremely slow fermentation that went on for just under a year. So we bottled just under a year after a very long slow fermentation. So at the end towards the kind of latter stages of that fermentation, I think it being very high in kind of phenolic acids and very low in sulfite meant that microbes like lactobacilli got their opportunity to kind of create leathery, spicy, old horse kind of aromas, which is something we're really not used to having in our cider because it's usually so fruit driven, and usually it's all about the fruit. But this, on the other hand, was very much about what the microbes did to bittersweet apples, which is really interesting, and a very interesting contrast to Pendragon, which is our experiment with skin contact. So with Pendragon, we, again, no choice about what fruit we use. We just ended up having a couple of orchards that have a single Pendragon apple tree in them. So they're like fruit that's dark red, it's red all the way through, and it's just got the most incredible aroma coming from the skin. And we just thought it'd be really, really nice to be able to capture some of that aroma in the cider. And kind of been inspired by an orange wine that I had had that was really, really fruity on the nose, but when you drank it, it was dry and really refreshing. Because so far, we'd only ever managed to kind of create fruitiness with residual sugar. So being able to create something that was fruity without relying on residual sugar was a really, really important aim. So made like giant homemade tea bags and added the Pendragon apple skins to those to ferment with the rest of the juice. So it's not all Pendragon, but it's I'm just trying to read one of those comments.
Water resistant?
Has someone had a... Oh, sorry, I cannot talk and read at the same time. And I'm just trying to read some of these comments. So Pendragon with the giant homemade tea bag, we were just extracting some of those aromas from the apples. And also because those apple skins seem to give the fermentation everything it needed. It gave it all the micronutrients that would otherwise be lacking. So it was a really, really quick fermentation as opposed to Saison Pomme, which was that really, really long, year-long fermentation. So the quick fermentation of Pendragon meant it was just very fruity and fresh, and just really didn't have any of those kind of microbial
things like a malolactic fermentation would lead to. So yeah, really, really two very different ciders, and that's a lot about what our cider making is about. It's just seeing what you can make with the fruit that you get, and also try and make the best of the fruit that you've got. So I'm just trying to see what's going on with the comments. I think someone might have had an explosion.
Yeah, the Saison Pomme is a little lively.
This is such an interesting thing, because I've now had two people, I know of two people who've had a very explosive Saison Pomme opening, which is really, really a really scary thing to have if you're a cider maker and you think, oh God, please can someone not open it over their Mac and then call me and say, can you pay for it? Because I'll be really bad. But we've taken this to a Vessel Beer Festival. Sam, I think, is watching this, Sam from Vessel. And at Vessel Beer Festival, we must have opened 30 bottles or something, or maybe more. And since then, we've opened quite a lot too. And we've never had one gush, but we know it does happen, because when I did an online chat with a sommelier recently, she opened it and it went absolutely everywhere. So I'm so sorry to anyone who's ever had Saison Pomme gush all over them. That's an absolute nightmare. I'm really, really sorry. I don't understand that. It must have been, we bottled it with a heavy yeast lees, so I'm guessing the bottles that were bottled last perhaps had something that could trigger gushing happening, because it was a lot of sediment at the bottom which can trigger gushing. But otherwise very confused about that, because I've never had one, and I always open them from warm, trying to hope that maybe it'll happen so I can see what happens, but no, it's bizarre. But
you know,
the natural products, isn't it? It's unfiltered, unfined, unpasteurized, and had no added anything, so it's just the risk you take, but it really, really makes you worry.
You know that it happens to the best of people, don't you? The worst gushing we ever had at Manchester Cider Club was a Tom Oliver's cider. It hit the ceiling in the Crown and Kettle.
Oh, that's great to hear, thank you. But there's someone in the column that has just said we've lost most of the bottles, so if I get their address I can send them another one and pray that doesn't gush too. So if you're Ems and Leo, let me know your address. I'll send you another bottle. I'm really sorry.
Oh, thanks, Polly. Thank you very much for that. Okay, that's the end of the sort of planned talking. So we've now got about 10 minutes that we can have a little bit of Q&A. So if anybody would like to say anything, you can use the little hand tool. Do you know where that is? Or you can just wave at us and we'll try and pick it up, me and Rachel. Anybody? Anybody waving? Rebecca.
Becky.
Sorry, Becky.
Rebecca's fine. Rebecca's fine. I answered both. I have a question for Polly about the apple skins. Did you just use one lot of fresh skins in one batch of cider, or did you use the same kind of tea bag of skins in multiple ciders? And how long did that kind of effect work if you did that?
So fresh skins, we fermented, we started a fermentation going just wild yeast fermentation, which wasn't all Pendragon. It was actually, none of it was Pendragon in that tank. It was all from one orchard down the road. And then when that had just started, that's when we picked all the Pendragons, put them through the mill, put them in the tea bag, put them in the tank. And then we just, so I say skins, but actually it was all the apple.
Right, okay, I was imagining you skinning tons of apples.
So I started with that. I started skinning apples and I thought, what the hell am I doing? No, it's everything, but I just talk about skins because I think that's where everything comes from that matters. But
yeah.
That one load of Pendragon apples into this giant tea bag and then into the tank.
Nice, lovely.
And I'm really, we were ecstatic with how that how the extraction of the aromas worked. It's really, really pleasing. And we've got another one. What's interesting is we've got another cider that we did in the same way, again, 0 sulfite, skin contact, pet nat, bottled at the same time. And it's just different varieties. So it's a really nice way of just seeing a very pure way of tasting what happens with different skin apple varieties with different skins.
Yeah.
So that's going to come out soon, and it will be via Felix at the Fine Cider Company. That one's called Snick It because it's really lemony. So if you can taste Pendragon against Snick It, it's an interesting experiment with skin contact.
Nice, thank you, Polly.
Okay, Charlotte had her hand up. You need to unmute, Charlotte.
Audio, there we go. This Ditcheat Hell is absolutely gorgeous. I've never heard of it before, but it's lovely. I just wondered what both of this and also Susanna's, what kind of level of sweetness, we're cider makers ourselves at Mere Money Cider. We're thinking of doing a bottle conditioned cider. What sweetness was this when you actually bottled it? And obviously Susanna's is much drier. I'd quite like to also just understand what kind of level of sweetness.
Yeah, so the Ditcheat Hill, when we bottled in June, and let me remember, the residual sugar was 45 grams per litre. And yeah, that was higher than we expected it to be. So that's what it was. Because like I said earlier, we expected it to go dry. But it is a particularly old orchard. It's never been fertilised. It's been grazed, but not all through the year. So it hasn't really had much natural manure. So the nutrient level is really low. And yeah, the sugar was really high that year. So yeah, the cold racking, I think, during the winter really helped capture that residual sugar. But yeah, 45 grams per litre.
45 grams. 40 grams. Lovely. It's lovely. Lovely cider. And Susan, I'd really love to know on your dragon, which we're tasting here, which is delicious, much drier style, obviously. You know, how did you go about that on your bottling?
A bit of unmuting. I'm bringing in James, Chief Cider Maker here. So hello. This one, we fermented to dryness, didn't we?
We did, yeah. So we bottle conditioned it. So it was dry cider when we created the blend, and then we added 7 grams per litre sugar and some yeast, and that was it. And it then fermented out till it was dry again.
So we carefully measure the amount of sugar and yeast that we put in for the bottle conditioning to get it to not too lively, but where it's got to there.
Basically about 1.7 bar pressure, I suppose.
Yeah. And
you can do that if you have a dry liquid and you have a yeast that's going to eat all the sugar, you can control the level of carbonation very exactly, which is what we wanted to do for this, because too much carbonation I don't think would have suited it. So we tried to get, we're very happy with the carbonation level that it ended up at. It was a successful experiment.
Thanks. Thank you.
In those terms, anyway.
Okay, shall we move on to the question about how people can support cider makers at the moment? Is that okay? Who would like to start off on that? I'm sure everybody's got something to say. Susanna.
It's a really great question, and actually it's going to be completely pivotal to the craft cider sector. So thank you for asking that. Thank you for being here. One of the best ways is actually, I've put the links in the chat, is to check out Dick Withycombe's amazing list of suppliers, because that gives us a map, but also suppliers and also what other producers are doing. So we've all had to change our business model. So if you, for example, if you don't get hold of us, you know we're just out doing stuff which we didn't know we were going to have to do. So I'd actually like to ask my other Cider Women members what they're doing. So very briefly, from our point of view, we advanced our web shop. We weren't going to be doing that, but we brought that forward 6 months. We launched a cider club, and we're trying to do more things online so that people can connect and find us that way, because we can't come and see you in the pubs. We can't wait until we can, and let's have that humdinger of a party when we can. But I think that's the main ways we've done it. And if you can keep looking for cider producers and going that extra mile, that's what's going to help us. So Lydia, I'd love to come to you, because I know you work locally, and we've all been hearing this, and I thought your experience of what you're doing locally is a marvellous example as well.
Yeah, so we, by complete chance, had applied for our premises license just before all this happened, which was granted a few weeks ago. So we're frantically putting together our online shop at the moment, which hopefully will go live in a couple of weeks. So watch this space. And we're building a shop here as well, so people will be able to purchase directly from us, and come and look at the orchard when this is kind of changed and we'll got back to some kind of normal again. So we're looking forward to being able to open up that to people.
Do you also, though, link up with other local producers for local deliveries?
We haven't been yet, but
food,
we should probably.
Food, or well, I know you've got a good local community. What I'm seeing in some places is that people team up with other, whether it's a box, a veg box, or whether it's a beer producer. And so we're all trying to form other links. So maybe you'll know someone locally to you that actually might want to team up, because we're all about the community, I think. Fiona,
can I just bring in Emily from Blue Barrel?
Hello. Hi. Hello. You're right. Yeah, we've been doing a bit of that since the lockdown. Actually, we already had people who were distributing our cider, but we've actually, obviously, like everyone else, has found that the bag-in-box sales have gone down completely, like non-existent. And the bottle sales, which we were hoping to build on anyway, we've got these lovely new designs, so we were going to be launching them. We've done a bit of a soft launch online. They've been going like hotcakes, and local bakeries supporting them, and then local like craft beer bottle shops, breweries who have got their own premises and can do it. And we by chance, we live in a little tiny suburb of Nottingham, and we've just found out that there's a guy who runs a thing called Adventure Beer, which has basically been 100% beer bottle delivery, which he does literally 2 miles from us, or 1.5 miles from us. Someone said, have you tried him? Anyway, we've linked up with him. He's added us onto his website. We're the only cider on his website, the rest is beer. And he has been getting about 100 bottles a week. It's been amazing. So we kind of turned like a bit of a corner. We've had this really negative and quite stressful time in terms of everything else. Closure of community garden that we run. So the cider that we have which we make in Nottingham, 100% of the money that we make supports the community garden. And on a bit of a side issue, the community garden's lost funding, and all the funding's been halted because of COVID. But luckily for us, the cider sales seem to be sort of ticking along and taking a different road, really, as it were. So I think just to finish up, what I say in terms of supporting cider is not just is linking up with other people who are going to be in the same boat, supporting each other, sharing posts, kind of promoting each other online and opening up that dialogue. So, getting what we've been asking people who've been buying our cider to do is putting little notes out there to them. So when they come and collect the cider from, or we've got a friend who's been collecting it, she's got a premises license, and we've been just putting little notes saying, just talk about our cider for us, share, talk about it, get that dialogue open on social media, get people talking about it. So the likes on our Facebook and Instagram have gone up. People have been tagging us. When we've even done silly things like a kind of, a kind of online saying, oh, tag a photo and we'll choose the best photo of the week, and the person who has the best photo can get a free bottle of cider. So a few things to think about anyway.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, I am conscious that we're running out of time a little bit, but I'd just like to ask the people from Vessel to talk about what they're doing, and then perhaps Susanna Mansfield could say something about Frown for Men. So, Sam, Katie?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so we're firstly trying to support not only like breweries and cider producers direct, but the suppliers, the wholesalers. We're not trying to cut them out of it because they're struggling as much as anyone else. So we're still getting most of our cider directly from Felix at Fine Cider, which is where a lot of you are supplying to. But yeah, we're still trying to push it through our local delivery and using these sort of events to push it. We've done a few events now and tried to promote it. So what I would say is if you are doing online events, try and give us some advance notice so that we can get those sales out there. We deliver once a week on a Saturday normally. So obviously if it gets announced on a Wednesday for that weekend, it's too late for most people to put their order in. So if you have got a bit of planning, if possible, then do let the suppliers on Dick's list, let them know so that they can use your online events as a tool to sell your cider. We've also been in touch, Martin from Pilton's been in touch about the Southwest Cider Week that's coming up in the middle of June. So that'll be a good platform for a lot of people, a lot of cider producers in the Southwest to team up with their local beer shops or online retailers to try and get stuff going. You got anything else to add?
No, we've been drinking a lot of
We've
cider.
been drinking a lot of cider, some good.
Perry, I like Perry.
Okay, we've also got Jules, who's from Hop Hideout in Sheffield, and I know you've been selling cider, Jules, yeah? Can't hear you.
Sorry, just working out the unmute button. Yeah, I mean, I've got kind of quite a long passion for cider. I accidentally, when I moved to Birmingham in 2010, ended up joining the local camera branch down there because I didn't know anyone. It was a new city, and I ended up being their Apple representative. So I think one of the first things I did was organise a trip to Tom's, to Oliver's, and we did like a whole cider tour. So I sort of accidentally ended up becoming more of a sort of a passionate person around cider because of that. So it's 10 years for me. And when I started Hop Hideout in 2013, I wanted there to really sort of promote cider, but it's quite tough in South Yorkshire. It's not really a typical Apple County. There's still quite a lot of work to be done really in the area I am, but it is growing. And what I'm really excited about, and listening to all of you today actually talking about single orchard varietals, seeing the beautiful bottles, talking about nature, sort of the intertwining of the landscape, with this industry, which I know it's difficult to talk about some of the positives of COVID, but I really do think people are connecting with nature. They're really sort of seeing wildlife come back into their cities, watching their allotments grow day by day because, you may have more time to be able to sort of spend doing those sorts of activities. And I think that's one of the positives, actually. People are really sort of reconnecting with nature. And I think it's, for cider and for cider makers, that could be a real positive to get, your message out more to the UK really around what you're doing. So I'd love to see more about farms, about kind of you posting more content. I mean, I saw the beautiful orchards in the back of some of your backgrounds, and yeah, I'd just love to hear more about sort of the process, and not of just making the cider, but the nature around it really.
Thanks, Jules. I'm being told that we need to kind of wind up a little bit. So I'm just going to bring Susanna in, Susanna Forbes, to just wind up the session. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It's been really enjoyable. Susanna.
Thanks, Cath, and thanks everyone for being there. It's been so lovely. As someone who sort of came over from the beer world, admittedly not as a brewer but as a journalist, I knew how supportive the beer world was, and you've just shared all that love with us. The fact that half of our questions have been not just about the fantastic techniques or the fruit or whatever, and there is much more to share on that, and we'd love to do that. It's about how you can support us is really, really, really useful. So thank you for that. Rachel has said that we'll be able to share some of these links on the Facebook posts after, so we will do that. And I'd like to give a couple of other shout outs to really great people who are supporting us. Crafty Nectar with its marketplace, it opened up to cider producers, so that's a really good one. Camera with its rethinking cider approach, so many things, the Pulling Together for Cider campaign, the Pubs, Pints and People podcast, which last week actually focused on cider. It's only its third or fourth podcast, and Katie Wiles, the senior communications manager, she made a visit in the autumn, and she shared a discussion with myself and with our fellow co-founder Elizabeth Pimlett, who sadly couldn't be here today, so I think we should all give a thumbs up to Elizabeth. Looking forward to seeing you soon, Elizabeth. So next week's podcast we'll have a prize. It'll be a 3-county cider and perry case of cider, all inspired by women. So do give that a listen when you can. And finally, if you want to learn a little bit more, do come visit us. That's the way. Look up the Beer and Cider Academy. We are doing various other bits. For example, for camera, Lydia is going to be doing a year in the life of a cider maker, a visual story. So we'll make sure we let you all know. We're talking about what other gatherings we might have. We had planned CraftCon, our session there was going to be a workshop on what our members would like us to focus on. So maybe what we'll do that on Zoom, and we can invite you all in. We'll make sure you have the link so you can join us in the group or follow the page if you simply want to see what's going on. We want to give a very big thank you to Rachel. We also want to mention the charity that what Women on Tap is supporting this year, which is the Refuge charity. It's so important. I really hope you get to your target, Rachel. We need to put the link in there. I want to give a final cheers to Rachel for getting us all together, and I want to look forward to when we're next going to get together. So a big wassail on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Wassail.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating. I've absolutely loved hearing from all of you, and what a brilliant way to this. There are some silver linings to this new virtual world we've all found ourselves in, aren't there? In the I'm in the orchards of lots of you at the moment, and it's brilliant. I love it. You've obviously got such more to tell us and great stories, and there'll be lots more of you out there with also their own stories. And I think there was a comment about the fact that these times have kind of made us all appreciate local producers so much more and kind of actively seek them out and actively try to support. And I think it's not just local, it's this kind of small batch idea that we can really go and access that absolute quality product that people put so much love and attention and passion into. So do follow Cider Women and do access that list of suppliers. I'll see if I can get a link to share on an email afterwards with the Just Giving link as well, just so it's a one-stop point of reference there. But thank you everybody, thank you for the delicious cider. What better way to spend a bank holiday Sunday? And we've got a panel discussion at 3 o'clock and then some live music at 5 o'clock, and that wraps up the festival. So do join us if you can, and I hope to see you all online and in person again very soon. Thank you very much everybody.